Hi, I wanted to take some time to show you sort of the process of a concept in its earliest phase. This is a bird's eye illustration I'm just finishing up. I'm not going to be able to show this to you or show this video to you for about a year when we finally release the course, but I wanted to document where we were. So writing you or videoing from the past, this is the sort of the end of the concept phase as we're starting to move into firming up a design. So this bird's eye sketch was only done after I had done a whole series of individual concept sketch for each of the temples. The design is that you enter and you walk along a causeway taking you up to the top of Mount Olympus, and as you're moving along the causeway, you're actually meeting, you're going to temples dedicated to each of the 12 gods as you make your way up to the Olympian council at the top. So this is the final sketch, but let me show you some of the sketches that were done on the way to getting to the finished bird's eye, starting with the first temple we go to, which is for Aphrodite. And the idea was that although we wanted to stay loosely true to the architectural styles of Greece, ancient Greece, at the same time also we wanted to deliver upon your expectations of what it might be like to meet each of these gods, not necessarily meet them personally, but meet the shrines dedicated to them. But we also wanted to be playful. We wanted to have our own interpretations. So this is actually based upon the sanctuary to Aphrodite, but the sculpture inside of it is definitely our own interpretation, as well as all these sort of potion bottles that are laying around the base. Each are sort of jutting out of this roiling sea of clouds. So you're up above the cloud layer and you're moving along this causeway as you go from temple to temple as you make your way up to the top of Mount Olympus. And here's some detail sketches I did first that just sort of explore the architecture, potential elements that might be in the shrine, offerings that might appear at the base of the shrine, each exploring the potential and possibilities that we could start focusing on as we start getting into actually building this. The next temple we meet is to Poseidon. We've actually dealt with Poseidon before when we did the Atlantis course, and there's a sort of nod to another previous Walkabout course. The Nautilus had a squid in it, so we have the tentacles carved in stone that are wrapping around the base, and also this idea that as his fist holding the trident comes out of the pool, that water's pouring down the sides of this god's temple, which is also surrounded with carved representations of oversized coral. And we also realized that since there's 12 gods, that we probably, 12 buildings is a lot to go to. So some of them are sharing temples with each other. So this particular one is Hephaestus and Ares. They have a 2-story temple that you're going to start in low, and you're going to enter Hephaestus's forge, which is this sort of hot metal and smoke. And then you're sort of going to wind your way up to this sort of fighting arena for Ares. I did some more individual sketches of potential details that would be in there, everything from a giant crucible or several crucibles pouring into a pit that you play around. And I played also of this idea, this big mask with lava pouring out. We decided to save the mask for a different temple, but some of these are just a chance to explore what might be in this particular environment. And then it was complex enough with the 2 layers. I did another sketch that is the sort of a section through the temple. So you enter this lower sort of dark cave-like pit with the forge and the crucibles pouring the hot metals, and then smoke is pouring out the side of the temple. And then you wind your way up and eventually to this arena that has a large statue of Ares for the Ares portion of the temple. We make our way across more of the causeway and we get to encounter Hermes. Hermes is temple is much more traditional. If you were to do a Google image search for the temples for the various gods, they all pretty much have this similar look. Some are bigger, some have more columns, some have a bit of an interior, but really this is what they would all look like. And if we represented all of our gods like this, it would get fairly boring. So we decided to save the more traditional version to Ares and leave it very, very open to the air, including this walkway, this stairway that only he could use as he would fly off with his winged feet to go wherever he needed to go to deliver things. We have a statue of him, and he's adjacent to a village. I also did sketches of various artifacts and assets that could be attributed to him. His winged sandals. He carried a messenger bag. His sort of staff that includes the two snakes that we attribute to the medical world, and also early versions of the Hermes. There were Herms, which were carved statues that would sit in the roads throughout Greece, and they were places for offerings. So sort of the god of travel. You could leave your offering at one of these. And then next to it is sort of a village as you're walking up. We wanted to break up this sort of temple experience with sort of a village of structures, so maybe support demigods that help the gods help wash their feet and make wine for them. Anyway, you walk through a little village, so I did some sketches of the different architectural styles of those areas, and we make our way up to a plateau area that is dedicated to Dionysus. And Dionysus is like the Roman version of him is Bacchus. He's all about wine and partying, and so we have great barbers outside, and then carved inside of the mountain is this cave where we have the mask of Dionysus, and wine is pouring from his mouth into a goblet, and there it's flanked with giant wine casks. And above the entry is a fresco of a bacchanal or a party happening, and then some more sketches of the various details that we might include, including the mask and the goblet, as well as the casks, his sort of pine cone staff, and then jugs of wine and various other party beverages. We move from Dionysus back out, and then we meet Demeter. Demeter is sort of the goddess of nature and bounty. So we've got an elevated sort of hanging garden as you're making your way up higher and higher up Mount Olympus. We've included a cornucopia, and then we've included a sort of a small temple that includes a statue of her, and then nature sort of taking over the temple as we make our way up the mountain. Then we meet with the temple for Artemis, and Artemis is the goddess of the hunt and also of nature, so she's a good neighbor for Demeter. And we wanted the front of it to have this very, very traditional look, almost all made of columns, but as you move through the temple, they start to evolve and turn into trees with foliage, finally leading to a statue of Artemis with a doe, and then over here is a statue with a stag, and her symbol is the moon. So as you'll notice that none of these environments have the holes designed yet. That's something we're going to do later, and the design of those holes is definitely going to influence the final architecture and the final shapes of these environments. So although these are the intent of the direction we're going to go in, it could evolve and be very, very different by the time we finish this a year from now. We make our way up a ramp here, and we have another shared temple between the goddess Athena and Apollo. For Apollo, we've got this big armillary, this sort of spinning discs with the path of the sun moving around us. What is basically an inverted globe or sky dome and pit. Originally in our rough design, we had this as a dome structure, but then looking architecturally, the Greeks really didn't do domes. The Romans did. They did a tholos. It's basically a angled roof, tiled roof structure that's cylindrical. This one's loosely based on the Thanos sanctuary to Athena in Delphi. But then we took some creative license and we carved that dome inside of that more traditional structure. And then it's wrapped around by a library for Athena. And then finally we make our way to the very tip top, and that is the temple to both Zeus and Hera, and it also represents this sort of seat of Olympian government, the Olympian Council. And so you have Zeus's throne, and then surrounding it is the thrones of all of the 12 gods. And so I've done some sketches of potential treatments for those thrones. The idea is that not only do the thrones depict those things that are specific to the nature of each god, but they're also going to sort of reflect back on things you saw as you made your way along the causeway and through all of the various temples. So anyway, this is sort of an ambitious project for us, so it involved a lot more sketches than maybe we do on all of our courses, but it was really valuable to sort of do the homework as we started to actually build the environment. We feel very strongly we found a layout that feels really good. We think it's going to be very majestic, but we really won't know until we start to build all the pieces. So thanks for following along and taking this trip to look at these sketches. If you're seeing this now, it's been about a year since these drawings were done, and I look forward to you seeing Mount Olympus finished and getting to play around with your friends in VR. So thanks for following along.